Hello everybody, Michelle Houghton back for another week of Finding Copic Color Combos. We are in week 13, so I'm not going to flash you the 10, but we're back all the way to 13. And as promised, we started this last week, so if you didn't see it, we talked about the rust on this kind of old rusted train. And what we looked at last week was the pockets of the rust where the paint has completely peeled off or fallen off. And we're seeing the metal underneath that's in that really rusted out state. And what we're talking about today is then the parts that are left behind, and that as you're getting closer to the seam and there's more rust happening under the paint, it's affecting the actual paint coat. So we're looking at those sections today. So this part that the paint is still intact, where we have kind of this mottled look where you can see where they've rolled over it with paint, but the rust is still kind of bleeding through that. So I had some ideas. One of the things that took me the longest was actually to figure out the blue that was closest. So I kind of ran through the whole gamut, and it's funny because there are brush strokes that you can literally see in the paint. You could literally go crazy with varying that. And so I'm not paying attention so much to that as I am the area where it's coming into the paint. So I wanted a blue, but I didn't necessarily need all of those blue variations. So the B00, which is a pretty standard one, is right here. And I knew too saturated, too bright, not enough gray. I shifted to, let's see, we've got a B41, which has quite a bit more gray in it, a B32, which that is actually really, really close, and a B21. So I would say either the B32 or the B21 were pretty darn good matches. And it's funny, as they've dried now, I'm thinking the B32 is actually closer than the B21 or B12. I apologize. That's completely my wrong. This is B12, which is up here. Okay. I'm going to write this down because I do know what it was. B00. This was B41. This was B32, B21. And then up here I tried B12. So all of them end in those lower numbers. So we know value-wise they're all going to be lower end. But the B32 is actually really close. The B12 is the one I left on my table. And that is close as well. So you could either work with the B12 or the B32 in this case. And you're going to find that, especially in a family like the blues where there's so many colors, you're going to find a lot that are really close. So you'd have a couple different ones that would work really well. So then I was pretty confident that the E7 family, and you'll see those in here, I've played a little bit on them. We're going to be in this kind of mush that's happening as the rust comes up through that paint. And then I also knew that I'd need some of those greens. And then what I found is I needed to work into possibly an E50 to get some of those tones that are in those warmer tones, kind of in the middle of that. It's such an odd back and forth of color, and you know that it's doing just what Copics do, where you have that blue coming up underneath, coming on top, and then those reds and those rust pieces kind of coming up, and there's chemical obviously pieces happening there where it's coming up through the paint and affecting those colors. So it really is this kind of mishmash marble effect of really unique colors. So I know Amy Schulke actually talked about this recently, and she's doing an entire class on it. I wouldn't necessarily get lost in, oh my gosh, I have to have this color exactly there, and I have to have this color exactly there. But I'm still trying to find the group of colors that would make these kind of that mottled effect of that paint. And so that's where I'm getting us to. And then we would play with actually how to make it look like that a little bit later. All right. So this one I think is going to probably end up being a little bit different in that you might come at it from 2 different places or even 3 different places, because I think you've got a couple different things. So we're going to start with actually the darker, which is that E71. And I'm going to work that into, and that one is called, oh, I'm not going to be able to, oh, Champagne, I think. And then E70, Ash Rose. The E7s have a real mauve or mauve undertone, however you choose to pronounce that. And then what I found worked really, really well is pushing the G20 kind of into that, and look at how well that feather blends, how that just melts right into that, which I love. E20 or G20 is that wax white. And then I wanted to add some of those places. And this is the hard part about an image like this, is that you have things going in and out kind of different colors. So let's look at this first. So this is that E50, which is our eggshell. So let's look and see what we've got so far. So I think we've got some options here. There's not a lot of places where it's going to get as dark as that E71, but we have quite a few that are getting into the E70, and then right in here, see where it combines and gets into that G20 and E70 right in there. And then it works its way into some areas that have that G20 plus E50. The other thing I could see on here is that there's some places, and we'll come over to a different side of our card, that also have the E70 more into the E50, right? Oh yeah. Got those that don't have as much of the green. So we have some areas that have the green, some areas just have the earth tone and the E70, the darker earth tone. And then I felt like there were some areas that were cool, and I don't think it's necessarily the blue in here that's playing around. What I found is if I brought in a C1, one of those cool grays, and I just want to show you what happens when I put it right in between my E70 and my E71. And I could underpaint this too, I think. I should try that too while we're at it. If I underpaint the C1, the one thing I like sometimes about doing that lighter on top is that you do get kind of that mottled effect, which in this case is really going to work in our favor, because I think only adds to the roughness of the surface. So it would get some of the same tones if I underpaint it, but I'm going to have a hard time not overpainting that, kind of coming back in and giving that cool gray on top. But I felt like up in these areas where we see those cooler tones, you see what that does by adding that cool gray on top, and into those lighter, right? It gets right in there, and you could add the greens coming in from over here. I mean, you could really go crazy. Now the part kind of right at this edge, to me, you're dealing with your blue paint. My marker's behaving perfectly. It must be low on ink, giving me kind of that streaked look. And then it would have some of that E50 and also bits of that G20 is my guess. So let's kind of, haha. What do we think? Get that right over here. That's pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. All right. So we have E71, E70, and then those got C1 on top of them a little bit. We played with G20 running into that, E50 running into that. We also looked at what the E70 into E50 did. That's down here. And then this combo for as we run into the paint is a B12 with the E50 and the G20. So lots of stuff going on, and this would end up really mottled, obviously in the mix of that, but I think you get that idea of how, what my goal with this is to kind of talk you through. I'm not talking about like how to actually color this, but how to find the colors to even start. That's my goal with this little series we're doing. So, and we'll see, we can do some more. I'm not sure how many of these I'll do, or if we'll start kind of focusing then in on how do we create this model texture. If you guys have some feedback on that, you can let me know, but we'll keep it short and sweet on our Fridays. Thanks for joining me as always, everybody. If you've got questions, add those in the comments. Remember, these are getting moved to my YouTube channel at Copic and the Craft Room on YouTube. Kind of the Monday after has been my goal at this point. So it has its own little playlist of Finding Copic Color Combos. Thanks, everybody. Have a happy, colorful day.